Welcome to Workforce Development for Justice Involved Youth, Day 3. If you've missed Day 1 and Day 2, please go back and review that information as it will be important moving forward. Welcome to Day 3. Day 3, we will cover topics such as applications and resume Q&A, how to handle the box, and with that, we had guest speakers from Alaska's juvenile probation officers answering questions. We cover work values as well as your rights as a worker. You may notice on a resume that you're filling out that it asks you, have you ever been convicted of a crime? And you may not know how to respond to that, and that's fair, because we've actually run into a lot of students who don't know the answer to that question. How should they respond? First of all, let's get down to some vocabulary. Convicted versus adjudicated. So convicted is having been declared guilty of a criminal offense by the verdict of a jury, a guilty plea, or the decision of a judge in the adult system. The exception to this being status offenses, such as drug or alcohol use, tobacco use, etc. Adjudicated is when a judge makes a formal judgment or decision about a problem or disputed matter in the juvenile system. Most, but not all, of Alaska's youth are adjudicated youth, not convicted youth. So when it specifically asks on your resume, have you been convicted of a crime, it can get complicated because were you convicted or were you adjudicated? That really depends on what the offense was and what the job you're applying for is. Sometimes, unfortunately, semantics do not matter. And based on the offense or the job in question, you may not be eligible based on your background. So what do you do to find out if you can even apply for this position? Ask a GPO. We found out that many adults continue to call the Department of Juvenile Justice to figure out how best to answer these questions on applications well into adulthood. Don't be afraid to reach out to the Department of Juvenile Justice so that they can guide you because they want success for you. You can ask them if there's any jobs that the charges against you would require disclosure. You can also ask, are there any jobs that your charges would disqualify you from? These are very important questions, and the JPOs do hold the answers to those questions and can help you navigate this very confusing situation. So when in doubt, check with your resources. Make sure to contact the Department of Juvenile Justice because we'd hate for you to miss out on that perfect job opportunity because you disclosed when you did not have to. We'd also hate for you to find out that you didn't get a job you really wanted because you neglected to disclose when you should have. Play it safe and use those resources. Moving on to work values. Work values vary from individual to individual. Oftentimes your first job is not the job you will be doing for the rest of your life. During your first job, you often learn what your work values are. Work values are the set of beliefs or ideas that are related to your job. Your work values are things that you are looking for or things that are important to you when you are searching for a job that you want. Here are some examples of Miss Olivia and Miss Emily's work values. So Miss Emily's work values are making a difference, freedom of program development, non-micromanagement supervision style, a good work-life balance, having every day be a little bit different, having some variety, having the option to be active and social, or to do something a little bit more quiet and independent, such as data collection, data entry, or data analysis. And Miss Emily also enjoys and excels at putting out fires. Miss Olivia's work values include respect and value of her opinions and time from supervisors, working with students, and making a difference in the lives of others, having a work-life balance, loving her job, fun and uplifting work environment, and that days are different but predictable. You can see that we share some similarities in our positions and our work values, but we do have some differences as well. Each person is an individual, and your work values will not directly match the work values of someone else. So what are your work values? Be prepared to write them down and share with the group. Remember, the work values that you have now may not be the work values that you have in 5 or even 10 years from now. This activity is meant to make you start considering what some of your work values might be currently and how those might change in the future. Now that you have an idea of what some of your work values are, let's talk about employee rights. Now that you have an idea of what some of your work values might be, let's discuss employee rights. These rights are based on federal employment discrimination laws. Employees have a right to not be harassed or discriminated against or treated less favorably because of race, color, religion, sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation or gender identity, national origin, disability, age, or genetic information, including family medical history. Employees have a right to equal pay for equal work. They have a right to receive reasonable accommodations, which are changes in the way things are normally done at work that are needed because of a medical condition or religious beliefs if required by law. Employees have a right to expect that any medical information or genetic information that they share with their employer will be kept confidential. They also have the right to report discrimination, participate in a discrimination investigation or lawsuit, or oppose discrimination. For example, threaten to file a discrimination complaint without being retaliated against or punished for doing so. Know your rights in regards to safety. Federal law entitles you to a safe workplace. Your employer must keep your workplace free of known health and safety hazards. If you have the right to speak up about hazards without fear of retaliation. You also have the right to receive workplace safety and health training in a language you understand, work on machines that are safe, receive required safety equipment such as gloves or a harness and lifeline for falls, be protected from toxic chemicals, request an OSHA inspection and speak to the inspector. You also have the right to report an injury or illness and get copies of your medical records. You have the right to review records of work-related injuries or illnesses, and you have the right to see the results of tests taken to find workplace hazards. When should you file a complaint? Safety and health compliant. If you believe that your working conditions are unsafe or unhealthy, you may want to file a confidential complaint with OSHA and ask for an inspection. If possible, tell your employer about your concerns, as long as you don't have any fears of retaliation. You are protected from retaliation by law. It is illegal for an employer to fire, demote, transfer, or otherwise retaliate against a worker who complains to OSHA and uses their legal rights. If you believe you have been retaliated against in any way, file a whistleblower complaint within 30 days of the alleged retaliation. Fair Labor Standards Acts. What jobs can't I do as a minor? Many jobs are deemed hazardous, and it is illegal for people under the age of 18 to do these tasks. It is important to know what they are prior to working. Federal child labor rules. Purpose is to ensure that when young people work, the work is safe and does not jeopardize their health, well-being, or educational opportunities. It is also to serve as a platform from which young workers can explore the world of work while attempting to limit some risk. What are the reasons for these federal child labor rules? Every year, tens of thousands of youth under the age of 18 are injured on the job in America. About 1/3 of those typically suffer injuries serious enough to require emergency room treatment. In 2017, the most recent statistic available, BLS reported 22 workplace fatalities for workers aged 17 and under. Federal child labor rules do not require minors to obtain work permits, limit hours, or restrict time worked for minors 16 years of age or older, or require breaks or meal periods for minors. You may find that the federal and state laws don't match. So where federal and state laws differ, always go with the more protective standard. In the state of Alaska, child labor laws have more protective standards than the federal laws, and therefore state laws would be the ones that are applied. Federal child labor rules, hazardous occupations. The FLSA provides a minimum age of 18 years old for any non-agricultural occupations which the Secretary of Labor declares to be particularly hazardous for 16 and 17-year-old persons or detrimental to their health and well-being. Currently, there are 17 occupations that are deemed too hazardous for someone under the age of 18. Hazardous occupation number 1, manufacturing or storing explosives. Bans youth from working where explosives are manufactured or stored. Hazardous occupation 2, driving or outside motor vehicle helper. Minors under the age of 17 may not drive on public roads as part of their job. No employee under 17 may drive a motor vehicle on public roads. 17-year-olds may drive under limited, occasional, incidental circumstances. In daylight, less than 20% of work hours, seatbelt use, driver's ed, etc. are required. It bans driving for delivery work, bans driving for route sales, bans driving that involves towing. It also bans the driving of golf carts, ATVs, motorcycles on public roads, and prohibits the transportation of others. Occupation number 3 is coal mining. Hazardous occupation number 4 includes logging and sawmilling. Hazardous occupation number 5, power-driven woodworking machines. Bans the operation of most power-driven woodworking machines, including saws, stapling machines, nailing machines, and sanders. Hazardous occupation number 6, exposure to radioactive substances and ionizing radiation. Hazardous occupation number 7, power-driven hoisting apparatus. Here's a little bit more on hazardous occupation number 7. Hazardous occupation number 8, power-driven metal forming, punching, and shearing machines. Hazardous occupation number 9, mining other than coal. Hazardous occupation 10, power-driven meat processing machines. Hazardous occupation number 11, power-driven bakery machines. Hazardous occupation number 12, power-driven paper products machines. Hazardous occupation number 13, manufacturing of brick, tile, and other related products. Hazardous occupation number 14, power-driven saws and other cutting machines. Hazardous occupation number 15, wrecking, demolition, and shipbreaking. Hazardous occupation number 16, roofing. And finally, hazardous occupation number 17, excavation of any kind. Please head over to the video for our Day 3 knowledge check, where we will test the information you learned today about the different occupations and whether or not they can be done by a 16 or 17-year-old. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you back in week 4.